Okay, it is time for a monthly palette ranking. I haven't done one of these in quite some time, since November of last year. So I have a batch of palettes that I have had a chance to really use and test and get final thoughts on. I really like to use palettes more than once or twice before I put them in a palette ranking to review for you. So there are a few palettes that are actually carried over from the end of last year because I just didn't have enough time to really test them until now. Or finished testing them, I should say. So I am gonna rank these palettes from my least favorite to my most favorite. I will link the palettes that are still available down below in the description box. I will also list everything that is on my face in the description box. And as I'm going through this palette ranking, I would love to know your thoughts on these palettes. Do you agree with my rankings? Do you disagree with my rankings? Have you used these palettes? Have you not used these palettes? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments and give this a thumbs up if you enjoy palette rankings. These are all ranked based on my own preference and my own experience, etc. So if you have a different thought or opinion on the palette, that may very well be so. Because this is just, honestly, a lot of it is color story preference at the end of the day. A lot of palettes coming out now, they're pretty darn good quality. Now, I will say, I am going to throw one palette in this video that I'm not going to rank because I am extremely biased. But this is my favorite palette of the month because it is from my friend's brand, Singe Beauty. This is the Galactic Visitor palette. This is a brand owned by Angelica Nyqvist. I will link Angie's channel down below. And this is the first palette that she has launched from her brand. Love the cover. Like, this is so fun. It's so Angie. We got some Western inspired elements. We got some galactic alien invasion inspired elements. The quality of the packaging is so nice. It's like a matte touch with glossy details. Really, really beautiful. And the color story is really nice. We have kind of like a half warm tone, half blue. And you guys know blues aren't my absolute favorite colors to wear. In fact, it's my least favorite color to wear, but I will say these blues are really pretty and I really enjoyed the blue look that I got out of this palette, and the quality of the palette is very, very good. I really didn't expect anything less coming from Angie. The mattes are really good pigment level. They are easy to blend, easy to work with, but they definitely have pigment behind them. They're not super sheer. And the shimmers are really beautiful. There's a few different types of shimmers in here. We have some standard shimmers. We have a couple of iridescent topper shades. We have this shade called Milky Way, which is a holographic shade, which is absolutely beautiful on the lid. I love that we have a black. I love that we have a couple of inner corner matte options. This palette is great. Congratulations, Angie. I really enjoy it. Let me know. I know a lot of you in the I've asked before, and a lot of you have commented that you picked this palette up, that you're really enjoying it. Let me know if you picked this palette up, or let me know if you're wanting to pick it up. If you love the color story and you like the different formulas I just mentioned, you would not be disappointed. I did get that one sent in PR, by the way. I think I have 7 other palettes to rank. So coming in at number 7, it's the only palette in this stack that I purchased. Everything else from number 6 onward, I got in PR, just so you know. Is that true? Yes, that's true. So coming in at number 7, I have the Cosmic Beauty Sinister palette. So this was part of their Sinister Mystery box, but they are now selling this palette as an individual palette. So I love the Cosmic Beauty formula. I absolutely love their mattes. I think they're super blendable, super easy to work with. They look like they do in the pan. They're easy to build up. They're easy to sheer out. Just really, really stunning. And I typically really like the shimmer formula from Cosmic Beauty. I like the shimmers in this, but they're not my favorites. I do prefer the shimmers in their other palettes. I did feel like some of the shimmers were a little bit more on the dry, crumbly side. And the shade up here called Eerie, so it says it's a light gray based multichrome that shifts to red, yellow, and green. And it's an interesting, it almost looks holographic. I do feel like on the lid, I wasn't crazy about how it looked. It felt a little heavy. It felt a little dry. And I'm used to their shimmers being a little bit more on the emollient side. Some of them are, for sure. I do think that the 2 main reasons, apart from that, the 2 main reasons this is coming in at number 7, which I still really like this palette. Don't get me wrong, I still really enjoy this palette a lot. I don't love the color story. That's the first thing. Like, it's not my favorite color story compared to everything else that's coming up in the countdown. And then also this shade down here. I wish that it wasn't there because I'm never going to use this. And the thing that kind of I wish they maybe had done differently is I wish that they had introduced this type of shade not in a palette that's in a mystery box. I would have liked to have known I was going to get that, and that would make me decide if I wanted to pick up the palette, if that makes sense. And also, when I first got the palette, it has this plastic over it, which makes sense because it's a clear gloss. But there's nothing on the website when you first bought the box because it's a mystery box. They obviously don't want to spoil what's inside. But this is the first time they're doing this formula in a palette that they don't have explanation on the site of what it even is. I really had no idea what it was, and I couldn't like reference their Instagram, I couldn't reference their website for them to explain what this was. I wish that they had done this in a palette where they just showed the palette right away. Does that make sense? I hope so. So, I mean, for me, like I'm never gonna use, and it's described as a clear gloss. Like it's not an eyeshadow base. It's not the, you know, it's not a primer, which is what some people were kind of thinking it was. So that's kind of disappointing to me, but I can get over it. I just wish it was with a palette that we could have like looked it up right away and been like, oh, that's what that is kind of thing. So I actually didn't even think there was a shadow there at all. I thought it was just completely empty because it's called Ghost. That would have been a good joke, right? But anyway, I like this palette. I think it's good. I just like other things more in this ranking. Coming in at number 6, I have the Gourmand Girls Frozen Kiss palette. This was their holiday release for 2024. This is also in collaboration with Doodles by the Bunny. I really enjoy when they do these rectangle palettes. I think the quality is typically really good. The color stories are really good. Again, not a big blue person, but there's definitely a variety of other shades in here. There's purples, there's greens, there's even this kind of like dusty melon color, which I think is very interesting. There's definitely different types of shimmers in here. I'm not really a big fan of a very chunky, piecey, almost glitter looking metallic. And there are quite a few of those in here, like this one, like this one, like this one, like they're quite chunky. Now, on the lid, they actually look really pretty. I wore this palette the other day and I used this shade all over my lid and it did look beautiful, but it just ends up kind of coming down on my face even after I've used a glitter primer. And I just prefer like a very smooth, thin, basic shimmer. I'm a basic girl, what can I say? But I will say, love the looks I got out of this. I think the color story is very creative. I like that she's experimenting with different shimmer formulas because some people really like that type of formula. Not every palette has to be perfect for me, but I did really enjoy the looks I got out of this, and I really enjoyed the brand a lot. Coming in at number 5, I have a palette from Florasis. So Florasis sent me PR last year. I mean, I'm talking like the middle of last year, and I never got to using the products just because I had so many other things coming in to my collection. And they sent me, one of the things they sent me is this palette. Now, I think it's meant for like the eyes and the face. It's called the Floral Engraving Phoenix Makeup Palette in Retro Brown. Florasis is an app, like they make the most beautiful products with the most beautiful engravings on them. And the actual palette has the most beautiful embossing. Just stunningly beautiful work of art. Now, this is a very basic neutral palette in terms of the color story, but honestly, the looks I got when I used this, I loved. I've just been really vibing with these very simple, neutral looks, a very light eye look, where you're not getting a ton of pigment from this. Like that's not happening. It's very hard pressed in the pan. The shimmers are actually really pretty though. They are still shiny. They're definitely not like what I'm wearing on my lid right now, but I think they're really pretty. It was a look that I was really enjoying. I think the packaging and the presentation of the product is also absolutely beautiful. I know this is not gonna be everybody's cup of tea. I totally understand that, but I've really been enjoying this. I reached for it a lot. Coming in at number 4, I have the palette that I'm wearing on my eyes right now, and this is the Lethal Cosmetics Spellcraft palette. So this also came out at the end of last year. I love the packaging on this. It's one of my favorite packagings, I think, of any palette I have in my collection. It has this plastic kind of cover, and then you take this out and it looks like a book, and it's a faux leather. We have this snap enclosure, and we have a magnetic closure for the actual palette, which is really important to me. If it was just being held by this, I wouldn't feel very safe. We have a mostly purple color story. So I really love wearing purples. It's one of my favorite colors to wear if I'm gonna wear a color. Purple and green are my two favorite colors to wear. So I enjoy a purple palette. I don't have a problem with it. There's nothing here that's like I'm not wanting to reach for, but I will say you're gonna get mostly a purple look out of this palette. I did actually try to create on purpose today a look that was not purple, and I obviously was able to do that. All I did was I took the black, I put it in my outer corner, I blended it out with this gray, and I put the silver on my lid, and that was it. And I was able to create a look that's not purple. But most of the looks you're getting out of this are pinky purple, which again, I like. I just prefer to have a little more, like there are other palettes coming up that have a little more variety, but still a very good palette. Some of the shimmers in here are, again, on that little chunkier, thicker side, like the one on my lid. I got it onto my face. It got on my hands. It was really, like, it's still on my hands. It's just not in my preference, but there are also some shimmers in here that are smooth, which I really love, like this iridescent shade, this one, they're ultra smooth, still have that shine to them, so I appreciate it. I think the quality of the mattes is really good. I feel like the quality of these mattes is the same as the Avatar: The Last Airbender. They're really pigmented, basically. So yeah, I mean, I love the packaging on this, and I really love a purple palette. Coming in at number 3, I have the Kaleidos Sashimi City palette. This is not a new palette. This came out several years ago, but this ranking is all palettes that are new to me or fairly new to me. Kaleidos sent me a giant package with a ton of their products. I was very thankful, and they included several of their eyeshadow palettes. And this palette is actually a palette that I've wanted for years. I've always eyed it, and I'm so glad I have it in my collection. So it looks like this, very basic. It's a very basic neutral palette, but oh my goodness, I, again, love the looks I got out of this. Very soft, very pretty. The mattes are really nice to work with. They're not ultra pigmented, although there are not any really like dark shadows in here, so I'd have to test some of their darker shadows to get like the full picture of how pigmented they are, but very easy to blend, very easy to work with, and the shimmers are my favorite, smooth and sparkly. We have one that has like a pink reflect, almost like a rose gold, and then we have this iridescent shade that has almost like a yellowish tint to it. I loved it. Now, of course, not getting a ton of variety of looks in this at all whatsoever, but the quality of the shadows is phenomenal. I love the packaging. I love the vibe. And if I was going to travel and I really just wanted to create a neutral look, I would definitely pack this in my bag. I really hope Kaleidos comes out with more eyeshadow palettes this year, because they really haven't released much of anything last year, and certainly not eyeshadow palettes. I know they have some quads, but I'd like a larger palette from them. Number 1 and 2 are so good. Like, some of my favorite palettes I've tried, well, obviously some of my favorite palettes I've tried recently, that's why they're 1 and 2. But I really enjoy both of these palettes a whole lot. So number 2, I have the Blend Bunny Cosmetics Plastic Palette. This is one of my favorite palettes they've ever done. It's kind of a tie. Well, I really like the Blends palette because I just enjoy using it, but like color story wise, this one and the All Done Up palette, 2 of my favorite palettes. But I love that they're doing something that's more compact. This is so much more in my preference. I love this color story where I have a lot of variety in such a small amount of shades. Definitely can get some neutral looks out of this, lighter, brighter looks, deeper, darker looks, get some colorful looks as well. And I love that it is warm leaning. That makes me very happy. Great Blend Bunny quality in terms of the mattes, great Blend Bunny quality in terms of the shimmers, different shimmer formulas. We have an iridescent shade, we have some standard shimmers, we have a multi-chrome, and we have a couple of like these duochrome shades. I mean, really well done. I'm so happy to see something like this from the brand. I really hope we continue to see more things like this from the brand. I've just fully been enjoying this palette so much. And it does have bright pink packaging, so like it is a little deceiving. Only 4 of the shades are pink. The rest are not pink. So just keep that in mind. It's like 1/3 of the palette is pink, but love this palette so much. And coming in at number 1, can I get a drum roll, please? I'm kind of speechless on how to even talk about this palette because I love it. Obviously, I love it so much. It's at number 1, but let me just show you what it is before I start going on. This is the ColourPop and New Moon palette. This has to be one of my favorite palettes ColourPop has ever done. It's definitely by far my number 1 palette I've tried recently. And there's almost nothing about this I don't like. Like, I love the packaging. I don't have any attachment to the IP. I've never watched Twilight. I've read the first book when I was, whenever it came out, a teenager, something like that. I don't care about the IP at all whatsoever, but I will say I love the packaging. Like just the look of it with the moon and the trees, the soft matte touch. The packaging on this entire collection was very well done in my opinion. This color story, I love this color story so much. So much. We got plenty of neutrals. It's definitely warm leaning, but we do have some variety where we can create some other types of looks as well. I think the quality is very good. The mattes are very good, pigmented. They actually have a little kick up in the pan. They pick up really nicely on the brush. And the shimmers in this are really pretty. We have, whenever they do these palettes with the larger pans, they tend to have different types of shimmer formulas. We have, this one is definitely more of like a satin shade, this red, which I actually think is nice. There's only one of those, which I appreciate. We have some standard shimmers over here. We have 2 of these glitter hybrid formulas, which I actually don't mind them, even though they are textured. I don't feel like they're overly chunky. I don't feel like they fall all over my face. And then we have Mood Control up here, which I really enjoy as an inner corner highlight. It's more of an iridescent shade. Typically my problem with the ColourPop palettes that have these larger circle pans is usually the mattes are very hard pressed. I actually don't feel like they're hard pressed at all. I think they pick up great on the brush. I love the selection of mattes. I love the selection of shimmers. This palette is one of my favorite color stories I've seen in a really long time. I think it's so beautiful. I've really been reaching for this a lot. Again, for lighter looks, kind of 1-2 shadow looks, or to deepen up my look as well, I can do that. So absolutely love this palette so very much. All right, and that is it for this palette ranking. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what your favorite palette is that you tried in the month of January. I would love to know what you've been reaching for and loving. And I will see you guys in another video very soon. Bye.